In just 58 minutes, Eala ruins Coco Gauff, and the audience erupts. No one anticipated it. Not the fans, not the analysts, not even Gauff. The energy was different from the first serve. Electric, colder, and sharper. Eala was more than just a tennis player. She had a message for you. Each blast was like a razor slicing through the air. Every return had a fiery response. Gauff's confidence gradually eroded as her rhythm broke. With each rally, the crowd grew, rumbling from disbelief. And there was anarchy when the last ball struck the line. They had just changed the course of history. Beneath that 58-minute masterpiece, however, is a tale of rivalry, pressure, and covert retaliation that nobody anticipated. Because strength isn't always the goal of supremacy. The goal is to disprove everyone. There was silence prior to the eruption. Just before the game started, there was an odd, unsettling silence throughout the arena. It's the kind of quiet that seems to warn. Everyone was familiar with Coco Gauff, the young sensation who took the world by storm, a Grand Slam champion, a symbol of the sport's future, and a person who handled the pressure of expectation with the grace of an old hand. Alex Eala was standing across the net. Calm, composed, undervalued by many, unknown to others. The headline did not feature her. She wasn't the most popular. However, she was the unexpected storm. I had been quietly constructing something for months. She spent late nights watching match tapes, endured long sessions in the sweltering sun, and overcame moments of doubt. She was born in the Philippines, where playing tennis is a passion but not a guarantee. Where every loss feels personal and every success like revolt. Eala had been informed from the start that players from her region of the world don't succeed. Too small a stage, too far away, and too few resources. However, she had no desire to rise to the top and disprove them. She felt she belonged there, so she desired it. She now stood opposite the lady who represented everything she was told she couldn't be on this court, illuminated by dazzling lights. Coco Gauff is the face of contemporary tennis, a fan favorite, a sweetheart for sponsors, and a fierce competitor on the court. It was not meant to be a close game. One-sided betting lines were used. Analysts expected a resounding victory. However, there was something in her eyes as I arrived at the baseline for her warm-up. A kind of silent rage. She wasn't present to take part. She was present to assume control. Her coach murmured something that only she could hear in the corner of her team. Ignore her identity. Remind yourself of your identity. It was more than just counsel. It was ignition. Restless, the crowd mumbled as they waited for the court to be illuminated by Gauff's characteristic intensity. The cameras flashed. When Eala hit her first serve, fast, clean, and right on the edge, the sound shattered like thunder, and even Gauff appeared a little taken aback. Reporters scrawled notes. Nobody was ready to trust the story that was told in that first game. Eala was not responding to the beat of Gauff. It was dictated by her. Every movement was planned, every rally was measured, and the tension started to change in a matter of minutes. The audience, accustomed to applauding Gauff's supremacy, began to sense something out of the ordinary. Uncertainty. Experienced admirers recognized the expression in Eala's eyes. Not conceit, not nervousness, just such unadulterated attention that it appeared almost frigid. The story of how she had been ignored at every turn and how she had competed in every tournament as simply another name was included in that emphasis. It was more than just a match. It was a proclamation. The audience still had hope for a comeback when the first set got underway. With Gauff, they always did. She was legendary for her tenacity. There was a murmur in the air, though, and it got louder with each point. This chick is who? Eala's shots had become declarations by the time she broke serve for the first time. There were gasps with each victory. There was incredulity at the end of each rally. She had no smile on her face. She wasn't having a party. She was methodical, laser-focused, and locked in. The fierce Coco Gauff appeared human all of a sudden. Additionally, it seemed like the women's tennis balance was shifting throughout that first half hour. The quiet before the storm started to break. The eruption was imminent. There was only one rally at the start. 41 shots of outright defiance. This is the type of rally that characterizes momentum. The type that changes everything you believe to be true. Coco Gauff had just lost her serve. She tried to slow down the slipping rhythm by rotating her racket while standing at the baseline. Alex Eala's gaze never left her across the net. Just that unwavering fire, without any emotion or smile. It was a rough first serve. A blur into the corner. Gauff's signature power. Deep to the backhand, Eala caught it clean. The cross-court line, forehand, backhand, and back and forth came next. Neither was retreating. After every exchange, the audience gasped, as the tempo increased with each shot. Then it took place. Anticipating the angle, Eala intervened and smashed a forehand down the line with such ferocity that it painted the baseline's edge. The tension was broken by the umpire's call. Allah is the game. Gauff stopped. Something shattered in the air as the crowd erupted. That was more than just a game-winning point. Everything altered as a result. Coco appeared uncertain for the first time during the contest. She glanced at her box, looking for confirmation. Her coach gave a slow clap, but his face spoke everything. This was not intended to occur. Her face was unreadable as I moved quietly to her chair and sipped some water. Commentators attempted to explain it. One remarked, "Perhaps Gauff is adjusting." "Eala is acting irrationally," someone else muttered. They were unaware, however, that this was not a fortunate run of luck. It was a tactic. Gauff had been investigated by Eala. She was aware of the pressure spots. She didn't always choose winners. She waited until Gauff had no more room to move, making mistakes and tightening the angles. The crowd, which was primarily there for Gauff, started to become agitated. When Eala's winners hit clean, there were gasps, murmurs, and even apprehensive cheers. The tone completely altered after a brief exchange at 4-1 in the first set. Gauff yelled in exasperation after missing a standard backhand and smashed the ball on the net post. The arena went silent when the umpire gave a warning. Eala did not respond. She simply moved to the baseline after turning away and adjusting her wristband. It wasn't just competence anymore, and that moment made it clear to the world who was in charge. It was psychology. Gauff's expressions all contributed to Eala's composure. Alex grew colder the more Coco attempted to energize herself. It was a stark contrast. One player is controlling time, while the other is chasing rhythm. The subsequent games flew by. Eala's returns were harsh, accurate, and nearly surgical. She moved effortlessly in court. The audience was incredulous when she broke for 51. As if history were being recorded in real time, people began to record on their phones. Is this actually taking place? Near the first row, a fan yelled. The story had completely changed by the time the first set concluded at 61. Words like overpowering, thundering energy were increasingly being used by commentators. Despite this, she never smiled since she knew the match was far from done. Not until the very end. Gauff attempted to reset during the second set. There are a few strong serves, slower speed, and deep breathes, but momentum is an oddity. It is difficult for it to return after it has shifted. And the spark had already ignited in Eala's eyes. Gauff's annoyance flared up once more by the fourth game. Eala's forehand touched the edge as she asked about a line call. Gauff yelled, "Out." The umpire decided against it. Tension was in the air as the crowd jeered. Eala only nodded and got ready to serve once more. The illusion was totally destroyed at that point. It wasn't a coincidence. This was dominance. Unstoppable, methodical, and pure. And the audience stood up once more, half in amazement and half in awe, when I held serve with an ace down the tee. In real time, she was revising the narrative. A single declaration at a time, one game at a time. Because the young Manila woman wasn't playing against Coco Gauff at that precise moment. She was attempting to dispel every doubt that had ever been cast upon her. And she appeared to be winning for the first time. The atmosphere in the arena had entirely altered at the beginning of the second set. What had started out as a Gauff-friendly audience had evolved into something chaotic, erratic, and electrifying. After each point, the sound of incredulity reverberated. It was almost as if everyone was saying, This can't be happening. Eala has already broken serve once more after winning a set. Her self-assurance had evolved into authority, and that authority was now hazardous. It was subdued domination. Every motion felt deliberate. Each rally came to a precise conclusion. She didn't pump her fist, yell, or celebrate. She just strolled back to the baseline after turning and adjusting her cap. The crowd erupted even louder because of that poise and that quiet. After a rare winning at 2-0, Coco Gauff finally roared. In an attempt to capitalize on the commotion, she waved her hands in the direction of the stands. Cheers, chants, and excitement were the audience's responses. Eala didn't blink even though it seemed like the tide may flip. Her serve went wide on the very next point, and she drew Gauff off the court before finishing with a clean forehand into the open area. 9 seconds passed during the rally. The audience let out a gasp. Then a portion in the upper rows began to chant, softly at first, "Eala Eala." As the noise level in the stands increased, it became apparent that the audience was no longer solely hers. That after each point lost, it slumps. Eala responded with something sharper, quicker, and crueler each time she attempted to rally. In the middle of the game, social media started to buzz. Videos of Gauff's failed backhands and Eala's accurate forehands were all over X and TikTok. "This chick is who?" A single tweet was read. "Another Eala is acting as though she had something important to prove. And she's proving it. Fantastic." Eala's game was on the rise by the midpoint of the second set. Throughout the broadcast, incredulous commentators murmured, "This is one of the most dominant performances we've seen against Coco Gauff in years." The court was no longer the only place where conflict existed. It was worldwide. Gauff double faulted at 4-1. She tossed her head back, clearly frustrated, while the crowd moaned. Eala served again after bouncing the ball 3 times with unwavering composure. One more ace. The crowd erupted. Faces were panned by cameras. While some were surprised, others cheered. With their hands folded and their eyes fixed on her every move, Eala's team remained silent in the player box. They anticipated it. The last game comes next. Coco Gauff is staying in the game by serving. Shouting her name and pleading for a miracle, the crowd stood up. However, miracles are not commanded. Eala made a brutal comeback. Heavy, deep, and relentless. Coco engaged in combat. Error. Point of match. Quiet. The serve arrived. In the center of the box. Eala's forehand ripped across court. A mix of color and sound. The line was cut by the ball. Excellent. Set and match for the game. Eala. The words reverberated. And time seemed to pause for a moment. An eruption followed. The stadium as a whole roared. With their phones raised and voices piercing the din, fans jumped out of their seats. For a minute, Eala stood motionless, gasping for air, and gazing at the scoreboard. It took 6:58 minutes. Approaching the net, Coco Gauff out her hand. Eala took it hard. No sneer, no haughtiness, simply silent reverence. However, it was captured on camera. Gauff's sportsmanship belied the frustration that flickered in her face. The uproar followed Eala as she left the court. As if they were watching the birth of something great, the audience yelled her name. She took one look back, not simply to see it unfold in real time. Long after the game was over, the sounds of the crowd continued to reverberate around the arena. Everyone felt as though they had just seen a tiny earthquake. Short, abrupt, and hard to ignore. Coco Gauff absorbed what had just transpired while sitting by herself on the bench with a towel over her head. For a gamer accustomed to mastering every beat and storyline, this defeat was more than just a loss. It was incredulity. Social media was inundated with match footage within minutes. Slow-motion replays of Eala's cross-court shots, side-by-side comparisons of their reactions, and TikTok edits of her forehands all play continuously. The 58-minute caption that went viral said, "No mercy." On X, fans quickly became split. Eala was hailed by one group as a future superstar who revived women's tennis with her accuracy and bravery. The performance, according to the other, was too clinical, too aloof, and even contemptuous. Since Gauff's followers attempted to justify supremacy since it always causes unease when it is unexpected. She appeared worn out. She's conserving energy for the upcoming occasion. But everyone knew in their hearts that this had nothing to do with exhaustion. It has to do with control. Gauff mustered a grin during her press conference after the game. She turned on the lights. Today, I was unable to find my groove. Yet her eyes conveyed a different message. Tight, far away, still taking in what had happened. Ella didn't make her mad. The powerlessness that every athlete has when their best effort is insufficient infuriated her. Then Ella arrived. Serene, modest, and a little overtaken by the attention. She spoke quietly at first, almost softly. All I did was try to play my game. I greatly admire Coco. She is among the greatest. I was surprised by this score. The noise was simply made louder by that humility. Every phrase and every expression was examined by commentators. Did she just minimize one of the season's biggest surprises? A reporter inquired. Another said, no. She simply displayed maturity that was beyond her years. However, there were rumors backstage, the kind that lead to conflict. There were rumors that Gauff had left without fully speaking to Ella. Some said their handshake was icy. A little video clip appeared. As Ella turned to face the stands and held up her hand to the audience, Gauff hurried out of the court. It turned into a storm. Sportsmanship or shade, is what some headlines say. Following Ella's historic victory, Gauff leaves. Is a new rivalry emerging? It was fueled by the internet. Supporters took sides. Discussions erupted in the comment areas. And hashtags like TrueStarTeam and TrustTeamGauff became popular at the same time.